Welcome back, guys, to episode 7 of 20s Unfiltered. The very special guest today, where Mateo, if you want to introduce our guest.
Mr. Jorden Pivato, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited. I think we have some really cool topics to talk about today. The listeners will probably learn a lot. But yeah, my name is Jordan. I'm 24 years old. I'm currently a crypto consultant at KPMG, one of the big four accounting and auditing firms. Yeah, it's pretty interesting that we do crypto at one of these traditional finance firms. Not too many people know that. And crypto consulting in general is kind of niche, right? Like basically, I help other companies with crypto.
Oh, sure.
Mhm.
Everyone's like, "What? That's a thing?" And yeah, it is. So that's what I do. Yeah, I studied finance and mathematics at U Waterloo in university, and I am very into investing as well in crypto, stocks, even real estate, anything investing related, just growing your wealth. I know a lot about that, and I even post about it on social media, on Instagram, and all over. And I've helped a lot of people through courses, coaching, and all that stuff. So, yeah, that's my intro. Yeah,
That's pretty much your portfolio. That's sweet.
Yeah, that's
There you go.
awesome.
How was studying at Waterloo for what you wanted to do? Did you find the courses for that type of industry? Like, how did you find that? Like, do you learn a lot?
Or was it really like self-taught? Like, were they really getting into what, is important?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Originally, I knew I was just always interested in money, making money, and numbers. So that's kind of how I decided to go into finance and math in university. What I actually studied in university, what they taught me, was not very applicable to the real world in terms of actually managing your own money. Definitely didn't teach me much there. How to actually invest your money, didn't teach me much there. But they did teach me more like corporate finance, how to do that for a company, how to help a company with that. So it helped for getting a job in the real world, I would say.
Right.
But in terms of managing your own money, no, did not teach me that. And same with crypto, especially crypto.
Oh.
Like there was nothing like that. I started uni in 2018, and that was like now 2024. Crypto is a bit more popular, but 2018 nobody talked about it. So there was no courses on it, nothing. All throughout uni, I never learned anything about crypto from school. Only one prof ever I talked to said they were somewhat interested. Everyone else thought it was a complete scam. So now they're probably all sad that they
Look at it now, yeah. It launched.
But yeah, it was all self-study, to be honest. 95% of what I know about managing my own investments, crypto, all that was from self-study. So yeah, you got to learn on your own. But there's a lot of great information online now.
Oh, yeah.
Not like 40 years ago. So
No. You have it all there. You just gotta know where to look.
exactly.
You gotta do your research, guys. So do you say before, let's say you invest into a stock or that cryptocurrency, what is a critical strategy you would say you use to find that next big launch or that next big bull run?
So first off, I could talk about this for like hours to give you like a really in-depth answer. But to simplify, there's a few things that I look at. And even before I go into these things, what I will say is everybody should study and understand what they're buying before they buy anything.
For sure.
Whether that's real estate, stocks, crypto, anything. And the reason for that is because investments and assets change in price a lot. And if you're buying something they don't really understand and it goes down 20, 30%, you might freak out and be like, oh gosh, maybe I made a wrong decision. I should probably sell. Whereas if you really understand what you're buying and you're like, I think this will do really well in the long term, like I believe in this, then if the price goes down, you're going to feel like, you know what, I'll buy some more. It's on a discount.
Because you've done your research.
Because you've
and
done your
know
research.
what you're investing.
Exactly. So that's why this is important. So everybody knows. Okay. Now, what I look into for a stock, it's a few things. I break it down into two different things. There's the qualitative factors and the quantitative factors. The qualitative factors are things like the company's management, the brand reputation, other competitors in the market, where you see that industry going in the future, right? Those are all qualitative things that you can't really put too many numbers on. It's more just doing your own research, thinking about, just even living your own life day to day, seeing what's going on in the world. And that's actually very underrated. A lot of people think about the quantitative factors a lot more, which are the numbers. But honestly, the real advantage that a lot of people have, especially young people, is the qualitative factors, because you see what's going on in the real world. I'm telling you right now, I've worked at a lot of banks and other traditional finance companies. Most people who are number crunching, the big like Wall Street guys, they live behind a screen. They don't actually experience the real world too much and see what's going on, what's actually happening. And so that's where a lot of people actually have a big advantage, is the qualitative stuff. You notice everybody at school is really into iPhones. They're like, oh, I would never buy anything else but the iPhone. Right. Well, there's no way you can put that into a spreadsheet, right? You just see it with your own eyes. And so that's a big thing. Quantitative factors are the numbers. That takes a lot of studying and research. You got to look at financial statements. You got to read these reports, go into the numbers. You want to see if the company is generating a profit. Yeah, the actual financial health of a company, right? Like, company could say all these cool things like, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But at the end of the day, you need to see their real numbers, their past history, to see if they're actually doing well, if they're actually performing. So those are the two main things. I could even go into an example of a stock or something to kind of walk through each of them. I don't know if we want to go that in depth, but I could. Maybe that'll help.
Yeah, why not?
We'd love to hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, let's do something like Tesla.
Perfect.
Okay. That's definitely one of my bigger beliefs in companies. I think they'll do really well long term. So yeah, I'll start with the quantitative, the numbers. So obviously, I actually started investing in Tesla in 2019. So this was before everybody started talking about them and they became a big company. Back in 2019, their numbers were good. And what that means is the revenues were increasing, meaning they were selling a lot, but their profits were still honestly like pretty low. They just started to become profitable, meaning that their revenue minus their expenses was positive. They were actually making a profit. That just started in 2019. And that's when I realized, oh, okay, this company's like on the right path. So I took a bit more risk there because previous to 2019, they hadn't actually made profit. So I was taking a bit more risk, but I saw that movement. I could see like, okay, in the future, they're going to be more profitable. They're going to make more money. And now today in 2024, they are a lot more profitable. So that's just looking at the numbers in one way. There's a lot of other things you can look at as well. But yeah, that's one way of looking at some basic numbers. You'd be surprised how few people actually just look at a few basic numbers. And a lot of that is just they don't know what to look at. But to be honest, for me now, I've studied like hours and hours of what to look at. And I've looked at all these financial statements. I can look at now a company and within 30 seconds to a minute know if it's even worth like doing research or if it's just like a waste of time. Right. And so it's actually simple if you know what to look for, but it's hard to get to that point. Qualitative for Tesla, you can look at the company's management. So you look at someone like Elon Musk or even other people at the top of the company. What's their track record like? Have they been successful with other companies? Well, Elon Musk has been successful with like PayPal, SpaceX, a bunch of other companies he's ran. So you're like, okay, if he's done well with these, he's likely going to do well with Tesla. That's one there. The brand, right? You can see people like Apple, right? People like Tesla in general. I know people don't like Tesla as much as they used to, I would say. There's a lot more controversy, but 5 years ago, I could tell everybody was like, man, Tesla cars are so cool. Self-driving. Yeah, they're so cool.
No, don't run out of gas. Save.
Yeah,
self-driving.
Yes, exactly. And I remember in 2019, if you saw a Tesla on the road, you'd be like, oh, that's so cool, right?
Sabotaging the future, for sure.
Yeah. So that's the qualitative stuff, the brand name, right? Do people want to own that, right? So those are things that, again, you can't type into a spreadsheet.
No.
And you can do that just by living life and kind of analyzing the world. But yeah, I won't go any further into that, but that's one simple way. And it takes hours of research, I would say. You don't just spend 20, 30 minutes analyzing a stock and throwing your life savings into it. I will spend tens of hours, 50, 100 hours, which is a lot, but I'll do that to really understand what I'm buying. That's why I said that at the beginning. It's super important. You have to really understand what you're buying. And you don't have to own 100 different stocks. or investments. You can own 3 or 4 and just understand those ones really well
Mhm.
and put most of your money into those. And you won't feel like you're being too risky.
Yeah.
Only owning a few stocks if you actually understand what you own. Most people will buy 50 stocks because they're like, oh, whatever. Then if 1 or 2 does bad, I'm fine. That's
At
because
that
they don't know what
point,
they're buying.
it's gambling, right?
Yeah, you don't even know what you own,
Yeah.
right? So know what you own, spend the time really studying, and then put your money in. There's always going to be another opportunity. If you think, oh, I want to buy it right now because next week it's going to go up, relax.
Mhm.
Next month there's going to be a new opportunity. Month after there'll be a new opportunity.
Yeah.
So just make sure you know what you're buying, be confident, and buy when you're ready.
So you seem like the guy who's like never believed in keeping money in the bank, saving your money. So I assume based off what it sounds like.
What's your take on that? Like,
Yes, for the long term, investing your money and growing it is what you should be doing. We all know the prices of things go up over time, right? Inflation. And so you need to be growing your money. If you just let it sit in a bank,
Yeah.
you're losing your purchasing power. You know, if
As inflation goes, it decreases.
yeah.
exactly. So if you just have $100 sitting in the bank, in 20 years from now, it's not really worth 100 anymore, right?
Right.
Because everything else is more expensive. So definitely I try to leave as little money as possible in the bank because it's not growing. The only time I would, and I do, is if I know I have some big expense coming up in
Yeah.
a month, 6 months, a year, whatever, that I need to have cash for. Why do I say that? Because investments are risky. Tesla stock, for example, could fall 30, 40, 50% within a few months. In fact, that happens. And so if you're banking on just being able to sell that stock in 6 months for something you need to buy, well, you might only have half as much
Yeah.
in 6
Mhm.
months. So I would say you leave your money in the bank if you know you need to be spending
Right.
on something
Having
big.
having that security and
Exactly. There's nothing wrong with keeping money in the bank, but know that there's a reason why you're doing it. And
Mhm.
otherwise, it is just losing its value. So, yeah.
Yeah. So
100%.
that's what you gotta do your research. So those money's just sitting there, you're wasting it.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta let your money work for you, right?
Yeah.
That's the best way you can make money, I guess, nowadays.
Yeah. It's letting your money work for you is the ultimate hack to becoming super wealthy. When you're starting off and you're young, you got to put in the hours. You got to grind at a job to make some money. You know, maybe you can only invest $1,000 a year, right, or whatever. But it is a grind at the beginning. But once you have more money in your investments, it starts to grow like really crazy fast, and you don't have to do anything, right? Like I'm not going to say exact numbers, but I started investing in 2017, 2018, and you know, the money I made each year from my investments growing was not much. It was pretty small. Now in 2024, we're now in October, and I've made more money from my investments than my full-time job this year. And think about how many hours I've put into my full-time job. 40 hours a week, if not more. Every week.
Mhm.
I don't put that much time into my investments every week. A few hours here and there. And I've made more money from them. And now for the rest of my life, assuming we're not in a year where the market crashes, every other year I'm still going to be making more money from my investments than my job because I've built it up to be big enough.
Yeah.
And just to give you some like numbers to understand that, let's say your stocks go up 10% per year. That's pretty normal. Well, 10% of $100 is $10. So you're not making much if you only have $100.
Right.
If you have $1,000,000, 10% of that is 100,000. And so that's what happens. Once you have a lot more money, you just you
gets
make so
easier.
much more and you don't have to do anything.
So from when you said when you started investing, so like till now, let's say, because you made the more you made as much as you make for your full time job, let's say.
Yeah.
How do you know when to take your profit? You know, or do you just leave it in there and let it ride, right? Like, what's
Is
the play
there,
with that? Or do
is
you,
there really like a right time? Like, how do you read that? Like,
or you just take some profit, leave the rest in?
Mhm.
What's your take on that?
Yeah. Okay, it's a really good question, and to be honest, it's probably the hardest part about investing and the thing that most people don't know how to do very well. So it's a good question. Before I tell you when I sell, I will say the number one regret of investors, even Warren Buffett, the legendary Warren Buffett, he's like the greatest, most legendary, well-known investor. He says this as well, but I've even seen it in my own life. In fact, I was messaging a guy earlier today who said the exact same thing to me. The biggest regret of investors is selling a great stock or company too early. If you buy a stock at $50 and it goes to 100 and you're like, double my money, I'm taking that. Okay, nice. You doubled your money.
Yeah.
But Tesla, Google, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, if you just bought those companies 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and held them till now, you wouldn't have doubled your money. You would 50x your money.
50x.
And that's how you make the real gains. And so if you are buying something you truly, truly believe in, you've actually done your research in, and you think in 10 years, 20 years from now, it's going to be even bigger than it is today, I personally just don't sell. And you might be thinking, okay, but what if it's like gone up a lot in the last little while? I might as well take some profits, right? Everybody, including myself, cannot predict the market and time the market. It's impossible. We're all dumber than we think. That's what I tell myself. I'm not as smart as I think. And just because it's up a lot doesn't mean it can't go up more. I don't know. Because if you sell some and you want to buy back lower, it's tough.
Yeah.
That's more like a trading mentality. And honestly, I just stay away from that stuff.
Yeah.
I won't get into that. But yeah, so what I will say though is if you are going to sell, there's only a few reasons why I would ever do it personally. One is if you just have way too much money in it. So let's say you have $1,000 in your total investments, and 800 of it ends up being one stock because it's just gone up so much. And you don't want all your money in one stock. Okay, you take a bit out to spread it around into some other stuff. That's
Put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, exactly. So if you feel comfortable owning a lot of your money in just one, that's fine. But some people don't. And sometimes even I'm like, no, I'll sell a little bit, spread it around. That's one reason. There's two more. Another one would be if you do see a better opportunity somewhere else and you don't have any cash. We just talked about you probably don't want to leave too much money sitting in the bank.
Yeah.
And so if you don't have any money sitting in the bank and a stock you really like goes down a lot and it's on sale and you're like, okay, this is an amazing opportunity. And maybe another stock you have has gone up a lot and you're like, okay, I don't have any cash. Then that's another time when I'll sell a little bit and buy the other one. I don't do this too much because again, if you try to be perfect with it, you'll screw up. It's very difficult to do this well, but I'll do that if it's like only extremely, extremely obvious where this stock has tripled in the last month and this one's down 50%. Okay, I'll take a little bit of this and put it there. And the last reason, which is probably the most important and the one I do the most often, is if the company or the stock, I think, has changed and it's changed for the worse, meaning I don't think it's going to do well in the future. And that's actually an important point. A lot of people will buy a stock and just be like, yeah, this thing's good forever. I love this company. I love this stock. And then they'll be blinded by what's actually going on with the stock.
Mm-hmm.
If the stock starts to not do very well, the company's not making as much money, you got to let it go sometimes. Right? You're not married to a stock.
Yeah.
You let it go and you find the next one. So if the company is like not doing great, you think in 5 years, I don't know how well they're going to be doing. The management's not making good decisions, whatever. You see other competitors come into the market and you're like, oh, they might take them over. Like Google, for example, you see ChatGPT come and you're like, I don't know how Google's going to do the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a significant thing, right? So you can sell some of your stock if you just don't believe in the company as much for the long term. I'll stop rambling. Those are the reasons.
No, those are some very valid reasons.
I know.
Yeah.
Like with all that being said, like it's a lot of like mental battle with yourself, like really too, like you second thoughts and like what would you say helps with that? Like obviously knowing and understanding what you're investing, but I'm sure you have that in the back of your mind with some of your stocks, like, oh, like what helps you like give you that extra like confidence?
Mm-hmm. That's another really good. You guys are asking great questions. Honestly, these are good. So what I would say is what you said, really knowing what you own, studying it well, that helps. For me, for example, I've studied Tesla like at least 1,000 hours worth of studying the company. And the stock could crash 70% tomorrow and I would not even worry a little bit, unless something like really significantly bad happened with the company. Okay. But if just the stock went down, I would not worry at all, just because I've done so much research. So that does help.
Mhm.
But the second thing I would say is just, yeah, experience as well. When I was first investing like 6 years ago, I hadn't gone through it. I hadn't seen that my predictions play out, right? So I'm like thinking the stock will go up. I don't really know. I haven't done this before, right? Now I've been doing it for so long that I know 80% of the time I make a good decision. And so now I just know I'm confident in my own abilities because I've done well with it. And because I do the research, right? It's just like with anything, with working out, with anything you do, the more experience you have, the more you've studied, the more confident you'll get. So if you're a beginner and you don't feel confident, that is normal. That's going to happen. It's just going to take time.
Yeah.
And in fact, this is one point on the drive over here, I was thinking, I got to make this point. You want to start investing with very little money. A lot of people say, I can't afford to invest. I only have $100. Why would I invest? Like, it's not going to do anything. And sure, it might not do anything in terms of how much money you make. We talked about the 10% example before. $100 goes up 10%.
$10.
No big deal.
Yeah.
So a lot of people say there's no point, but there is a point. Because with anything, the experience you have doing it is actually a lot more important than the money you make in the beginning. If you start with $100, you make a bad decision. Okay, who cares?
Yeah.
It's $100.
You lose a bit of money. But there's people where they'll message me and they're like 28 years old and they have 30,000 they want to invest, and I'm like, okay, just so you know though, like it's gonna be tough when you start, you know. So, and if they make a mistake with 30,000,
Yeah, it's a different story.
you're screwed. So, start when you're young, even if you have very little money.
Yeah.
Literally any amount of money, just start because you want to gain that experience, learn the game, become more confident in yourself, and then when you're older and you do have more money, you're ready to go and you're like, I've been through this, I know what I'm doing. You feel more confident.
And being in the game as long as you have, do you think a lot of people look at it where it's like, okay, I'm going to invest this money, $1,000, and next week, and I'm going to double my money? You think like people look at it in the short term game, whereas you need to look at it in the long term game?
Oh yeah, that's like the number one thing. In fact, the stock market, crypto, whatever investment is literally a transfer of wealth, transfer of money from impatient people to patient people. Okay. And I've seen this play out time and time again. It is literally people who are thinking, okay, I'm going to buy it today, sell tomorrow, make a bunch of money now. They end up losing out. They end up selling right before something good happens, whatever.
Yeah.
And the people who are like, I'm just going to buy it and hold, I'm in it for the long term, they end up making all the money. I could talk about this for a while and give a bunch of examples, but trust me, like thinking long term is exactly how you're actually going to make money. And stocks go up in the long term over time. Almost every year, stocks go up, crypto goes up, usually. Now, sure, one in every 4 or 5 years, it'll go down. That's normal. But most years it goes up. So why not just keep holding? Because also then, in the short term, if you look at any given day or any given week or any given month, it's pretty much a 50-50 between going up or going down. Whereas over a longer term, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, it always goes up.
Yeah.
And so you just gotta, if you really want to win, you really want to do well,
Just hold.
you have to just sit there and hold. You have to think long term. And not just with investing, anything you do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because even I was like that before. Like when I first started, I was the same way. I was like, fuck, I'm going to put this $100 in,
Scary.
$100,000 in. You're like, it's a lot of money to me. I'm like, this is a lot of money. And you're down like $300, $400 or $500, and you're like, shit.
Mm-hmm.
I lost this money. I'll just pull it and keep what I can get. Meanwhile, a week goes by, you would have been back up at your 1,000, right?
Yes, exactly.
That's where I'm like, over the time and time again, like you make that mistake, you're like, there's no such thing as making quick money. There's no such thing or prophecy where you're just like you're making $1,000, $2,000, 4xing your money in a week. It's just not possible in your first week. It's a long term game where you got to put an hour, 2, 3, or sorry, a year, 2 or 3, 4, even decade into it.
Yeah.
Right?
Like you said, learn along the way. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're not always gonna win, but technically you are winning because you're learning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Learning is the most important in the first few years. Don't worry about making a bunch of money in the beginning.
Yeah.
No.
It's not what's most important. Yeah, that's what I'd say.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. With all that, what like so we're going into 2025 now, and
Yeah.
I don't know if you can get too specific or anything like that, but what are your predictions for, let's say, cryptocurrency in the upcoming?
Mm.
The evolution of it all.
Yeah. So I can give my predictions for the short term and the long term. What I will say is, again, the short term is extremely hard to predict.
Mhm.
Anybody who knows or says they know what's going to happen, they're lying.
Yeah.
They don't know. Even for myself, I can make predictions, and sure, I might be right 60 or 70% of the time, but it's really tough. You know, if they say they know for sure, they're lying. The long term is a bit easier to predict. You know, I would say like just think of anything. You know, maybe let's see, AI. We all
Yeah.
can say
Everyone's hearing about that.
in 10 years from now, AI is going to be more
So many
in our world, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. In 3 months, I don't know, maybe it will, maybe not,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's tougher. So long term, it's easier to predict things. So I'll say the short term, my first short term guess here. Um, Crypto specifically goes through 4-year cycles historically. It started in 2008, and ever since 2008, when Bitcoin was first created, Bitcoin's the main cryptocurrency, the largest one, the one everybody knows of. It's gone through 4-year cycles where it goes up for 3 years, down for one, up for 3 years, down for one. And if you look back historically, it's always done that. But it doesn't mean that's going to happen again in the future, right? It's just somehow that's happened. And I won't get into it too much, but interest rate cycles also
Do the same.
mimic that very closely, and money printing by banks also mimic that very
Yep.
closely. And so that's also why I said every 4 or 5 years the markets will go down. That is very normal because markets do go through cycles. We need that to happen. So yeah, and where we are right now in 2024, I guess we're in year 2 or 3, however you want to say it, where next year is supposed to be the last good year because last year was good, 2023. This year's been good, 2024. 2025 will be the third good year, and 2026 will likely be a bad year.
Yeah.
Again, if that's just following historical patterns of crypto, it's done that for like 15, 16 years now.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, who knows? You don't know for sure.
Yeah.
Anything can happen. So
No one knows.
nobody knows for sure. If I had to make a guess, that's what I'm going with just because that's what's happened in the past.
Right.
Nobody really knows. Okay. But yeah, I am seeing a lot of institutions get involved in crypto this year. And the people who are really paying attention maybe have noticed it. BlackRock launching their ETFs, JP Morgan, Fidelity, they're all talking about crypto all the time, launching their own products, investing their own money into crypto. So if you are paying attention, it's not like hidden too much.
No.
But they are getting involved and they're not announcing it to the world, really.
Yeah.
Yet. You know, the average person doesn't know that this is happening. That BlackRock, literally the biggest asset manager in the entire world, is buying a lot and they're offering a product as well. They're doing presentations on it. Like a week ago, they did a big presentation on it. So it's happening. And I do work with a lot of these, not the ones I named, but I do work with a lot of companies who are getting involved and they do want to get involved. And they will be investing in the space. So I think that's a big turning point. When I got involved, when I first started learning about crypto 4 or 5 years ago, man, no companies, no big institutions were getting involved.
No.
Very few, very few. So it's changing. You know, I can see. So that's good for the shorter term. Long term, genuinely I believe long term almost every company will own some crypto on their balance sheet. They'll own some Bitcoin. But yeah, long term to me, the trend is very clear for crypto. Not clear, but a lot more clear than the short term.
Right.
In fact, crypto is actually growing, it's adopting faster than the internet was when it first launched and mobile phones. In fact, BlackRock talked about this last week as well. I've actually also done presentations on this where there's graphs of like the adoption of how many people are using it, and crypto is growing faster than those two, which is crazy. But also, yeah, there's just a lot of really good use cases. What I will say is countries like Canada, the US, European countries, first world countries are behind in crypto in general. third world countries that don't have good banking infrastructure, good payment processors, they're actually further ahead. Why? Because they need it. And so they're using it. They're using crypto. We don't really need it. We have credit cards that tap. We have great banks. We have e-transfer. It's very
a lot of options here. Yeah.
Exactly. We don't need crypto, so it's not like everybody's trying to use it.
Mm-hmm.
You go to some other countries, though, they don't have banks. They don't have a bank account, so they just literally hold cash, right?
Yeah.
There's no way of them sending money to people. So they've been adopting it a lot more. And cool statistic is more people in the world have a phone than a bank account, which is crazy.
Wow, that's pretty crazy to think about, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? You would think, what do you mean? Like, everybody's got a bank
You got a phone, you got a bank account on your phone. Come on, what's going on here?
right? But banking is actually not, the banking infrastructure is not very good in a lot of places in the world. We just live in a first world country. We don't know this.
see it.
In fact, Canada is one of the best in the world for banking, so we really don't see it. But yeah, to use crypto, you guys probably know, all you need is an internet connection, a phone or a laptop, whatever, and you can use it. I can send you Bitcoin if you have a phone and I have a laptop and we have internet. We're good. We don't need a bank. So a lot of third world countries are really adopting it because they need to. And yeah, I think it'll grow more throughout the world over time. But just that's a really interesting point that not a lot of people see happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
There's a lot more adoption in other places.
I didn't even think about that, actually. So that is a pretty crazy point. I didn't even know that.
Yeah. Also, like, it's just getting faster too with like the technology that is coming in from like crypto and like for instance, like we talked about AI, and like then there's a whole other side, like there's gaming, there's a lot of different coins in those different genres, right? Like there's a lot going on in the crypto world that a lot of people don't really see and like understand, like not coming to light.
Yeah, I mean, I would say people don't really understand crypto, or blockchain is the real technology behind it. Crypto is just like a short term for it, like the term that everybody uses. But real blockchain technology is what is the real innovation. But think about it like this: nobody knows what the internet really is or how it really works. Very few percent of people do, but most people don't. I barely know how the internet works in compared to like other people, and I use it every single day. So you don't actually have to understand it super well for it to be a big part of your life. And so I think a lot of people don't understand crypto, and that's okay. You don't have to. It's just, to me, I will say that is one thing I understand very well, and I can see that in 10 years from now, we're all going to be using it.
Yeah.
And so just understand that this will be a part of our future. So you might as well try to learn about it a bit, because it will happen. It's just, you don't have to be an expert for it to be ingrained in your life.
Right.
And yeah, there are so many use cases, like you said, things that are happening in crypto that we could talk about that just people don't know about. That's okay. You just haven't learned about it, haven't studied it. Like I said, the third world country stuff, right? There's a lot of really cool things happening in crypto behind the scenes that nobody knows about. And what I will say, this is an interesting point. You guys will probably like this. A bit more controversial, but anyways, that's okay. Let's just say there's a reason why we don't learn about certain things in the education system, on the news,
I know that.
wherever, right? There's a reason. Why don't we learn about investing when it's such an important thing, or personal finances? Right?
Why, Jordan?
How to do your taxes.
There's reasons why we don't learn about certain things. Okay. Same with crypto. Why haven't we started learning about this?
Yeah.
Right.
It's the future.
There's reasons why. Yeah, it's pretty clear to me and probably you guys that it's not going to be necessarily changing the entire world like crazy, but it's happening.
Yeah.
It's going to be implemented, and people will be using it. And there's a reason why we're not learning about it, right? So I don't blame people for not knowing everything that's going on, because we're not being taught about it, and there's a reason why.
That could be a good indicator,
right?
Even for jobs like yours, like I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
You're like,
Right?
no one's even heard about this.
Yeah.
Right? Who would think like you can just work at a traditional finance company, helping other companies in the world with crypto? Like,
yeah. Understand it and learn about it, like how to use it and the benefits of it. Like that's cool. It's really cool that you're doing that.
Yeah, it is cool. I get some cool insights into what's really going on. I feel like I'm living in 1995, working in the internet industry where nobody knows what's going on. Everyone's like, "What is this thing?
Yeah.
It's kind of weird." the internet's just used for like, you know, scams and stuff. What is this? But then some people are like, oh yeah, I can see how this is gonna like, you know, be a part of our future.
Mhm.
And I'm the one who's like actually working in it, and
Yeah.
I can like really see what's happening. It's pretty cool. Like I think I'll look back in 20, 30 years and be like, wow, I was really like at the cutting edge of when I was starting. So it's a cool place to work, I have to say. Yeah, I'm pretty grateful. It's good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, like I said, you know, I've never heard of it, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
And you get that insight, right?
Yeah.
Plus, it's your job to know about this, so it's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Forces me to learn. I have to know.
exactly.
The biggest companies in the world, they're like CEOs and stuff will ask me questions, and I'm like, "God, I gotta know this. Like,
Mhm.
you have
Yeah.
to be studying it, and yeah, you want to know your stuff. That's for sure. Especially when they're paying you.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
and it's hard. Right? It's hard though, to like kind of like know it all. Because I'm sure there's been times where you're asked a question, you're like, oh shit,
mhm.
right?
Yeah, which happens, and you know,
You can't know everything.
no.
Yeah.
In fact, it's important to say that over making something up.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't know the answer to something, you say, I don't know, I haven't studied it well enough. Either one, you can say, and my colleague does, and I'll ask them, and then I'll come back to you. Or if they're on the call or in the meeting, maybe they'll chime in and say something. Or you just say, don't have a good enough answer for you yet, but
Make it back.
I know I can find out for you, and I'll get back to you. Like you
It's
said,
more of an honest man. That's what I like to hear.
you don't need to lie and just.
I would trust someone more if you give me.
Yeah.
Yeah, these people want the honest answer, right?
Yeah,
We're all human. Not gonna know fucking everything. So
of course.
What's the point of lying?
No.
Do
Even,
your research. Do your research.
even myself, I don't know everything about crypto. I go to networking events. I work with other people in other crypto companies who know way more than me. Way more than me. So there's going to be times where I get asked a question and I'm just like, I don't know well enough. It's going to happen.
Mm.
It's all good. Keep learning.
yeah, that's it. That's what we all gotta keep doing, man. Just keep learning, keep advancing.
Adapting.
You gotta keep up with these times because, you know, if you don't learn about investing now or your crypto now, you're gonna look back at like 2024, 2025 and be like, it should be 2030.
Yeah.
You're like, oh shit, why didn't I make this choice when I had to now?
Oh yeah.
And that's why we're providing this is like, hopefully we can relate, right? And we
Right.
want to bring insight where people don't talk about this as much. Nobody's talking about to the, you know, younger generation about crypto.
No.
They're just advertising fucking TikTok and
Yeah.
watching videos, right?
Rolling.
Whereas setting up your future can be done so young now. You
Oh,
can, you can do
Yeah.
it starting at the age of like 13, 14,
Yeah.
if you wanted to.
Because of the internet, it's right in front of you. You just gotta know where to look, like we said at the start. You know, like just know where to look. Do your own research. Study.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I mean, we live in a information overload time where there's infinite information.
Yeah.
You can learn about anything you want.
Yeah.
I think the hardest thing is actually just finding out what's good information.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Because there's so much of it. But yeah, if you want to learn something, you can. And if you want to set yourself up for a better future, you can. It's never been easier in terms of like, if you want to learn something, you can do it. But again, yeah, you got to know what the right information is, who you're talking to. Look at people's credentials, what they've done, what they've said in the past. If they just pretend like they know everything versus, okay, I know this, but I don't really know this, right? Past results is a huge thing, I would say, and like make sure they're legit.
yeah.
Right? So even for myself, when I first started posting on Instagram about my investing, I didn't have, experience being like, yeah, I've made this much money. I've been doing it for this many years. No, I was pretty much a beginner as well.
Yeah.
And so anybody listening to me probably should have been pretty skeptical, to be honest, looking
Right.
back, right?
Yeah.
Like I was just teaching people what I was learning, but I was basically a beginner. But now that I've done it more, now people can look at what I've done and say, okay, he posts that over this period of time, he's made this money, he's lost money there, but he's done pretty well over time. He's been in the game for this long. He's working at KPMG, helping other companies. You got to look at credentials and past history, past results to see if they're worth listening to. Because if people are good marketers, good sellers, they can convince you of anything.
Yeah.
Even if they don't have a good track record, they can convince you. So anytime you're listening to anybody online or even in person, anybody you meet, look at their track record, and that will really help you determine like if they're worth listening to in terms of, they know what they're talking about.
It's like getting a person, looking at statistics and putting on a chart.
Yeah.
Is that chart going up or down?
Yeah.
Like, look at it like that.
Yes. Yeah. What's their track record?
What's it looking like?
Yeah.
And back to the crypto talk, because I know you were talking about the meme coins.
Yeah. So, like, do you like? There's a lot of skepticals like on that. Like, you know, a lot of scams, a lot of that. Like, crypto definitely like gets a lot of hate for that. Like, do you think that will die? Do you think that will